Chapter 135. Why were the disciples of the Qilin courtyard so mysterious and hidden so deeply? It was a type of protection to prevent other sects from assassinating them. You have to listen to your master. Your master is doing this for your own good. Lu Ming said seriously. Autumn Moon stuck out her tongue and said, I know, young master. It's just that I can't stay by your side and take care of you right now. Then you have to work hard and cultivate. When you reach the 4th level of the martial master realm, young master will bring you to roam the world. Lu Ming encouraged. Really? Young master, you can't lie to me. Autumn Moon's eyes were filled with expectation. Of course it's true. When has young master ever lied to you? Lu Ming smiled. Time passed as the two of them chatted. Very quickly, an hour had passed. Young master, I have to go. Master should be looking for me. Autumn Moon said reluctantly. Go. With your talent, we can roam the world together very soon. Lu Ming pinched Autumn Moon's face and smiled. Autumn Moon's big eyes flickered with mist. Suddenly, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed Lu Ming's face. Then, she turned around and ran away with a red face. Like a frightened rabbit, she ran very quickly and disappeared into the mountain forest in the blink of an eye. Feeling the faint moisture and fragrance on his face, Lu Ming smiled and said in a low voice, This girl, after not seeing her for a while, her courage has grown by quite a bit. Shaking his head slightly, he turned around and left. In the following days, he continued to cultivate and hunt demonic beasts. His martial skills and cultivation were both steadily increasing. Time passed by slowly. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. The harvest of this month was gratifying. The fire astral spear technique finally made a breakthrough and reached the 6th level, the realm of man and martial arts as one. However, the high air steps was only cultivated to the peak of the 2nd level and had not broken through to the 3rd level. However, Lu Ming's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 9th level of the martial master realm. The next step would be the martial master realm. It's time to go back. Calculating the time, it had been more than 2 months since Lu Ming entered the coastal mountain range. On the path of cultivation, there was tension and relaxation. One could not blindly cultivate. Blindly cultivating might not necessarily have good results. With a slight movement, Lu Ming headed towards the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Half a day later, Lu Ming returned to the dormitory. Senior apprentice brother Lu Ming, you're finally back. I thought you wouldn't make it in time. Pang Shi hurriedly said when he saw Lu Ming. Can't make it? Why can't I make it in time? Lu Ming asked curiously. Zhang Muyun and Zhuirong's engagement banquet. Hua Qi walked out of the room with an invitation in his hand. Zhang Muyun and Zhuirong are engaged? Lu Ming was slightly stunned. 7 days ago, Zhang Muyun personally came to send you an invitation. Unfortunately, you weren't around, so he left this invitation with me. Hua Qi passed the invitation to Lu Ming. Lu Ming opened the invitation. The date was today, and the address was at Mystic Sword City's Swordsmanship Courtyard. Lu Ming had heard of the Swordsmanship Courtyard before. It was very famous in Mystic Sword City. It was known for its elegant environment. Many famous people would choose to host their wedding at the Swordsmanship Courtyard. Then I'm just in time. It's just right if I go now. Lu Ming smiled. The sun had not set yet, so it was not too late to go. Lu Ming had a good impression of Zhang Muyun. He was a friend that could be made. Since the other party was engaged to Zhuirong, and he personally came to send him an invitation, Lu Ming naturally had to go. Do you guys want to go together? Lu Ming asked. Forget it. The people going this time are all experts. We won't join in the fun. Hua Qi said. Lu Ming knew that Hua Qi was arrogant and did not say anything else. He bid farewell and headed towards Mystic Sword City. Mystic Sword City's swordsmanship courtyard was unusually lively. The red light shone brightly, and the atmosphere was festive. Zhang Muyun was extremely talented. Before Lu Ming's rise, he was ranked first on the bronze leaderboard. Even Duan Muyunyang, the newcomer king, was suppressed by him. Moreover, he was easygoing and generous. He had the demeanor of a king and was very popular in the mystic sword sect. This time, he was engaged to Zhuirong. Out of the 60 people on the bronze leaderboard, more than 50 people came. Not only that, there were also some silver disciples, elders, deacons, and even a few silver-robed elders. Including Zhang Muyun and Zhuirong's family, there were a few hundred people in the swordsmanship courtyard. There was a small lake in the swordsmanship courtyard. There was a flat space, and dozens of banquet tables were set up in the empty space. Although the banquet had not started yet, most of the guests had already arrived. Those who were familiar with each other sat at a table and chatted with each other. Just then, a middle-aged man who looked like a guard stumbled in. There was blood at the corner of his mouth, and one side of his face was swollen. Zhang Ji, what happened? Zhang Muyun's father, who was beside him, stood up and asked coldly. This scene naturally fell into the eyes of the others, and they looked over in surprise. Old master, young master, there are people outside without an invitation. We only asked them about it, and they attacked us and forced their way in. We couldn't stop them. The guard said loudly. What invitation? Do we need an invitation for the place we are going? An arrogant and cold voice was heard. 3 young men walked over. Who are you? Don't you know that today is senior brother Zhang's engagement day? How dare you force your way in? A disciple of the Azure Dragon Institute stood up and shouted. His name was Wu Kuei, and he was ranked 43rd on the bronze leaderboard. Yo yo yo, a mere bronze leaderboard disciple getting engaged. What's the big deal? What's there to be afraid of? A young man with a saber in his arms sneered. Arrogant. Let's see what you have. Wu Kuei shouted angrily. He moved like an eagle and pounced on the young man with the saber. He clawed at the young man with the saber. Petty tricks. How dare you show off in front of an expert? The young man with the saber sneered and struck out with his palm. Whoosh! The young man with the saber struck out with his palm. Although it was just a palm, everyone felt as if they saw a peerless saber being unsheathed. The saber radiance shot up into the sky and slashed at Wu Kuei's claw. In the next moment, Wu Kuei screamed in pain and his body flew back. He crashed into 2 tables before regaining his balance. However, his body was trembling and one of his palms was dripping with blood. Everyone was shocked and looked at the young man with the saber in shock. To be able to injure Wu Kuei with a casual slash of his palm, his combat strength was definitely not ordinary. Wu Kuei was ranked 43rd on the bronze leaderboard. Only the top 20 geniuses on the bronze leaderboard could defeat him so easily. However, these people were unfamiliar. They weren't disciples of the 4 great halls. Where did these geniuses come from? Zhang Muyun stood up and clasped his fist. Who are you? I don't think I have offended you. Hee, you must be Zhang Muyun who is ranked 2nd on the bronze leaderboard, right? One of the young men with a cold expression said. If Lu Ming was here, he would definitely recognize this cold young man as Jian Wuchen from the Qilin Institute. Chapter 136. That's right. Zhang Muyun said. There's no harm in telling you. Just prick up your ears and listen carefully. The 3 of us are disciples of the Qilin courtyard. Jian Wuchen said with an arrogant look on his face. What? Disciples of the Qilin courtyard. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard this, revealing a shocked expression. These people were actually geniuses of the Qilin courtyard? Although the Qilin courtyard was one of the 5 great courtyards of the Mystic Essence Sword sect, it had always been very mysterious. The outside world didn't know how many disciples it had and how many disciples it recruited every year. Even many silver-robed elders didn't know. Looking at the shocked expressions of the people present, Jian Wuchen and the others revealed a look of enjoyment. They liked to see the shocked expressions of others. They had a special bloodline and were born noble. They were born to enjoy the reverence, envy, and shock of others. This feeling made them very comfortable. So it's the disciples of the Qilin courtyard. Today is my engagement. If you're here to congratulate me, then please take a seat. If not, then please leave. If there's anything, we'll talk about it another day. Even in front of the disciples of the Qilin courtyard, Zhang Muyun still spoke in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. Zhang Muyun's tone caused the faces of Jian Wuchen and the others to sink. Another day? Why another day? We chose your engagement day to come today. I heard that most of the people on the so-called bronze list are here today. It saves us the trouble of looking for them one by one. During this period of time, I've heard that the people on the bronze list of the 4 great academies are known as the strongest group of geniuses in the martial master realm. When I heard that, I found it extremely funny. I specially came here to let you know what the true strongest martial master is. Your so-called strongest martial master is trash in front of us. Jian Wuchen smiled faintly. His tone was full of disdain. On the field, the expressions of some of the geniuses on the bronze list changed. The geniuses on the bronze list indeed represented the strongest group of people in the martial master realm. Each of them was very powerful. An ordinary peak 9th level martial master could be dealt with in one move in front of them. Now, a few people from the Qilin courtyard said that they were all trash. Geniuses were all arrogant. Although the people in front of them were disciples of the Qilin courtyard, some of the people on the bronze list revealed a cold light in their eyes. What? You want to fight? Good, I want to see how strong you are. The young man sneered. Then, he looked at Wu Kuei with an exaggerated expression and said, "Don't tell me you're also on the bronze list." Wu Kuei's face flushed red. He had just been defeated in one move, and found it hard to speak. Seeing Wu Kuei's expression, the young man laughed exaggeratedly. Huh, so you really are on the bronze list. A piece of trash like you is actually on the bronze list? Senior brother Jian, I've already said that the disciples of the 4 great academies are all trash. What bronze list? I think they're all about the same. I've lost interest in them. Damn it, how arrogant. You only defeated Wu Kuei. Do you really think that you are invincible? The young man's words caused a wave of angry roars. Not only were the geniuses on the bronze list displeased, but many silver disciples and even elders were displeased. This was because the words of the young man with the saber had included the 4 great academies. Shut up. The young man with the saber coldly shouted. His eyes were like lightning as he scanned the surroundings. He said with a mocking expression, "If you want to prove that you're not trash, then make your move, as long as you can defeat me." The scene suddenly fell silent as everyone looked at each other. For a moment, no one stepped forward. These young men were obviously martial masters, so it was impossible for the silver disciples to make their move. Judging from the young man's attack, it was simply unfathomable. The geniuses on the bronze list were also afraid. They all wanted someone else to test the young man's strength first, so they did not make their move. Senior brother Liu, you're too strong. How would they dare to make their move? I'm enough to deal with the trash of the 4 great academies. The other young man, who was the strongest among the 3, stepped forward. Boom! Then, the young man's aura surged, revealing his cultivation. Early stage martial master 9th realm. Everyone could tell at a glance that this strong young man's cultivation should have just reached the early stage martial master 9th realm. I'm a new disciple this year. My cultivation has just reached the martial master 9th realm. How about it? Genius on the bronze list, come and fight with me. Don't tell me you don't even dare to fight with me. The strong young man had a mocking smile on his face. The people on the bronze list were even more furious. This was an insult, a naked insult. They actually let a disciple who had just entered the martial master 9th realm challenge them. They did not put them in their eyes at all. I'll fight with you. A young man on the bronze list stepped forward. Everyone immediately recognized that this person was Su Xian, ranked 42nd on the bronze list. He was one rank higher than Wu Kuei. "What's your rank on the bronze list?" the strong young man asked. 42. Su Xian said. 42. You also want to fight with me and defeat you in one move. The strong young man smiled faintly. One move? Su Xian's face was incomparably gloomy. This strong young man did not put him in his eyes. Even if he was a genius of the Qilin courtyard, he was only a disciple who had just entered this year. He actually dared to threaten to defeat him in one move. How laughable. Did he think he was Lu Ming? Then let's see how you'll defeat me in one move. Su Xian roared and stepped forward. A long spear appeared in his hand. The long spear pierced out, emitting an ear-piercing whistle. Boom! Defeat! Su Xian softly spat out a word and punched out. This punch was filled with a jet-black light. The strong youth's fist was like a piece of metal, but it was also like a jet-black sun, emitting a sharp light. Clang! The fist hit Su Xian's long spear, emitting a deafening roar. In the next moment, the strong young man's fist shot out rays of jet-black light, destroying all of Su Xian's defenses and attacks. Su Xian screamed as his body flew out heavily and fell heavily on the ground, his body dripping with blood. Defeated, Su Xian was defeated. He was defeated in one move by the opponent, and his ending was exactly the same as Wu Kuei's. Sounds of people inhaling cold air could be heard from the audience. Was this the genius of the Qilin courtyard? Wasn't this too strong? He actually defeated Su Xian in one move. Was he really a disciple who had just entered this year? No wonder 3 of the 4 geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect came from the Qilin courtyard. Only Duan Mulin, with his exceptional talent, occupied one of the spots. How terrifying! Unable to withstand a single blow. What a trash! The strong young man sneered. When there is no tiger in the mountain, the monkey will be king. What bronze list? What strongest martial masters? They are all trash. They are just like children playing house. They are just like mud. When they meet a real genius, they are nothing. Chapter 137. Don't be so arrogant. Su Xian is only ranked 42nd. Don't think that you're invincible. I'll fight you. A young man walked out. Pu Sicong is going to fight. Pu Sicong used to be ranked 19th on the bronze list, but this time, he's ranked 20th. He's much stronger than Su Xian. Someone recognized the person who spoke. Pu Sicong had fought with Ling Kong during the 4 Academies tournament. Everyone was looking forward to Pu Sicong teaching the strong young man a lesson. What's your rank on the bronze list? The strong young man asked with a smile. Not high. I'm only ranked 20th. There are still 19 people stronger than me. Pu Sicong said. 20th? The strong young man shook his head and said, You're not my opponent. Let's find someone stronger. Arrogance. You'll know after we fight. Pu Sicong strode forward and arrived in front of the strong young man. Junior brother, these trash won't cry until they see the coffin. Let's end this quickly and let them know how much of a trash they are. Jian Wuchen said coldly. Senior brother Jian, don't worry. The strong young man grinned and shouted, Kid, take this. Boom! The strong young man also threw out a punch. His fist was black and shiny, emitting a metallic luster. Clang! Pu Sicong unsheathed his sword and sword chi soared into the sky. The azure sword chi almost materialized as it avoided the strong young man's fist and slashed at him. You want to avoid my fist? Dream on. The strong young man sneered. His fist seemed to pass through space and instantly landed on Pu Sicong's sword. A loud sound rang out. Just like when he fought with Su Xian, a sharp black light shot out from his fist towards Pu Sicong. Pu Sicong's face changed. His body moved and borrowed the strength of his opponent to retreat. He waved his sword and slashed out a dozen sword lights to block the black light. Not bad to be able to block one of my moves. But what about next? The well-built young man laughed loudly as he rushed towards Pu Sikong. He continuously punched out with his fists, and terrifying fist energies enveloped Pu Sikong, causing continuous explosions. Pu Sikong used his sword art and slashed out sword lights to block with all his strength. Boom! Boom! In an instant, the two exchanged more than a dozen moves. Then, a figure flew out and coughed out blood in the air. It was Pu Sikong. He lost again. Even if he tried his best, he could only last for a dozen moves. Everyone's hearts sank. Was this really a disciple who had just joined this year? Isn't he too strong? Everyone could see that the young man's profound rank low-grade fist technique had already reached the 4th stage, and he was not far from the 5th stage. Moreover, his physical body was also very strong. It was at least rank 2. More importantly, the other party's bloodline hadn't even awakened yet, but he was already so powerful. If he participated in the grand competition of the 4 academies, he would definitely cause a sensation. Everyone's tea. Could it be that to deal with a disciple who had just entered this year, they had to send out the top 10 experts of the bronze list? This time, there were a total of 8 people in the top 10 of the bronze list. Bu Xingkai, Duan Gang, Ling Kong, Duan Muchen, Qing Feiluan, and the others all had ugly expressions. Even if they won against a disciple who had just entered this year, it would be embarrassing. Moreover, Qian Wuchen and the young man with the saber had not made a move yet. The other party obviously had no intention of giving up today. They would not leave until the winner was decided. If things went wrong, everyone on the bronze list would lose face today. Let me do it. At this moment, a burly young man walked out. It's Su Song. It's great that Su Song is here. Everyone was slightly happy. Before the 4 academies tournament, Su Song was ranked 8th on the bronze list. Although the rise of Lu Ming and Ling Kong had pushed him out of the top 10, he was ranked 11th. But his combat strength was indeed very strong, much stronger than Pu Sikong. Junior brother Su, be careful. Duan Gang said. Both of them came from the Black Tortoise Academy and had a good relationship. At the same time, they were the 2 strongest disciples of the Black Tortoise Academy. Su Song nodded and walked out. Su Song, 11th on the bronze list. Please enlighten me. Su Song cupped his fists. He, 11th. It seems that an interesting person has finally come. The strong young man licked his lips and sneered. Fight! Without any superfluous words, the 2 of them fought. Everyone stared at them without blinking, hoping that Su Song would win. Su Song's fighting style was very similar to Duan Gang's. He cultivated his physical body and defensive martial skills, leaning towards defense and close combat. As for the strong young man from the Qilin Academy, he also leaned towards close combat. The 2 of them punched each other, constantly bombarding each other, like 2 savage beasts colliding. The battle was incomparably intense as fist force shot out. However, the strong young man was indeed incomparably powerful. It was clearly the 4th level of a low-grade profound rank fist technique, but when he used it, the battle strength he displayed was much stronger than other people's fist techniques of the same level. Su Song had no choice but to erupt his bloodline and fight. Fortunately, Su Song's defensive martial skill was very strong and blocked the strong young man's attack. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them had exchanged dozens of moves and it was difficult to determine the victor. Damn it, to be able to block so many of my moves, watch me break your turtle shell. The strong young man roared. It was as if it was a great humiliation for him to have so many of his moves blocked. Boom! A bloody light flashed on the strong young man's body. Following that, an ancient glove appeared on his head. Glove bloodline. Could this be the legendary special bloodline? Everyone was shocked and looked curiously. For most of them, it was their first time seeing a special bloodline. The glove was black in color and filled with an ancient aura. Everyone could even see that there were scars left by swords and sabers on the glove, as if it had gone through a fierce battle. A vast and mighty fist intent permeated the air. There were 6 chakras on the glove. It was obvious that it was a level 6 bloodline. Following that, the glove bloodline flashed and disappeared, disappearing into the strong young man's body. The strong young man's aura surged. "Break it!" The strong young man shouted and threw out a punch. His fist aura surged and reached its peak. Boom! The terrifying fist force blasted on the turtle shell shield around Su Song's body. Amidst the violent explosion, Su Song staggered back. His face was a little pale as his defensive martial skill was almost broken. "Again, let's see how many of my punches you can block." Boom! Boom! Streaks of pitch-black fist force were extremely violent. Su Song was completely suppressed and could only defend with all his might. But even so, he was only able to block more than 10 moves before his defensive martial skill was broken through by the strong young man and his fist landed on his chest. Su Song screamed as his body flew out dozens of meters and fell heavily on the ground. He coughed out large mouthfuls of blood and his aura was weak. Su Song was severely injured with one punch. "Junior brother Su." Duan Gang rushed over. After checking on Su Song, his face was filled with anger. He glared at the strong young man and said, "It's just a spar. You're too ruthless." It's his fault for not admitting defeat. He asked for it. Chapter 138. The others were silent. The strong youth was too strong. Even Su Song, who was ranked 11th, had been defeated. Did they really need the top 10 geniuses to fight? The opponent was only a disciple who had just entered this year and was only at the early 9th level of the martial master realm. If they sent out the top 10 geniuses, even if they won, they would lose face. From now on, the bronze list would no longer have any prestige in the 4 great academies. If a genius on the bronze list was trampled under the feet of a new disciple of the Qilin courtyard, what prestige would they have left? But if they didn't fight, others would think that the entire bronze list was afraid of a new disciple of the Qilin courtyard. Unless they won a great victory today, the bronze list was destined to lose face. Ta! Ta! A person stepped out. Everyone's eyes narrowed. It was Ling Kong. Was he going to fight? Ling Kong walked in front of the strong youth and said with a cold face, "You're not my opponent. Let's change." Even when facing a disciple of the Qilin courtyard, Ling Kong was still domineering. "Ha, ridiculous. We'll know after we fight." The strong youth laughed, his aura oppressive. "Junior brother, your bloodline has already erupted. You'll be at a disadvantage if you fight with him. Let me do it." Jian Wuchen smiled and took a few steps forward. "Ha, senior brother Jian, you're going to fight? I thought senior brother Jian wasn't interested in this trash." The strong youth laughed. Jian Wuchen revealed a disdainful smile and said, "They still have some hope in their hearts. They still want to fight with us. I'll completely defeat them and let them know who they are." "Ha, senior brother Jian is right." The strong youth and the youth holding the saber laughed. "Nonsense. Strength is not bragging. It depends on real ability. Let me see what kind of ability you have." Ling Kong's eyes revealed a fierce light. His body began to emit cracking sounds as it began to expand rapidly. In a few breaths, Ling Kong's originally majestic body became even stronger. He was like a giant ape. At the beginning, Ling Kong used the Berserk Beast art. "Take this." With a loud roar, the thick iron rod whistled through the air and swept towards Jian Wuchen. The iron rod swept across and the space seemed to tremble. It was obvious that Ling Kong's combat strength had improved in the past few months. Insignificant skill. Jian Wuchen didn't draw his sword. Instead, he formed a sword with 2 fingers and slashed out. A beam of sword qi, condensed and translucent like jade, slashed through the air. Condensing qi into a weapon, how is that possible? The spectators were shocked. Condensing qi into a weapon was a method that only a martial grand master could use. Jian Wuchen was clearly only at the peak of the 9th layer of the martial master realm, but he was already able to use the methods of a martial grand master. It was simply terrifying. Clang! The sparkling and translucent sword chi clashed with the iron cudgel in the air, emitting a shocking boom. Bang! 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 Then, he groaned in the air and took 7 or 8 steps back before he could stabilize himself. What? With a single strike, he knocked Ling Tian, who was in his strongest state, back 7 to 8 steps. Everyone was shocked and found it hard to believe. Jian Wuchen didn't even use his sword. It looked like a casual slash. Wasn't this too strong? Oh? Not bad. To be able to receive an attack with 40% of my power, it seems that the people on the bronze list aren't all trash. Jian Wuxuang said lightly. Everyone was even more shocked. That sword strike just now was only 40% of his strength. How could this be? Impossible! Ling Tian roared. Jian Wuxuang didn't even draw his sword, nor did he use his bloodline. It was hard for Ling Tian to accept that Jian Wuxuang only used 40% of his strength. He thought that Jian Wuxuang was deliberately saying this to suppress their morale. Boom! Taking a heavy step in the air, his huge body pounced on Jian Wuxuang like an enraged demonic beast. The iron cudgel swung down with a whistling sound. Even a small hill would be smashed by this blow. Then let's make it 60%. Jian Wuchen took a step forward and stabbed forward with his sword. An emerald sword chi violently slashed out, as if it had penetrated the space. When it appeared again, it was already in front of Ling Tian. Not good. Ling Tian's face changed greatly. At this time, he withdrew his iron cudgel to resist, but it was too late. He could only erupt with all his genuine chi to resist. Puff! Blood splattered everywhere. Ling Tian's shoulder was pierced. His body retreated dozens of meters, leaving a trail of blood. He was defeated. Jian Wuchen's sword was not only powerful, but also incredibly fast. It's not enough to only use brute force. Next! Jian Wuchen's disdainful voice came out of his mouth. The audience quieted down. With Ling Tian's battle strength, he was defeated in 2 moves. Moreover, Jian Wuchen said that he had only used 60% of his strength. Although they did not know whether this was true or not, their strength was simply unfathomable and terrifying. Now, only Duan Gang, Bu Xingkai, and Zhang Muyun were stronger than Ling Tian. Duan Gang's strength was similar to Ling Tian's, so he was definitely not Jian Wuchen's opponent. The remaining 2 were Zhang Muyun and Bu Xingkai. Today was Zhang Muyun's engagement day. Did he have to fight in person? Bu Xingkai frowned. He did not want to fight, but he had to do it in today's situation. This was not a matter of a single yard, but of the entire bronze list. It was difficult for him to stay out of it. Finally, Bu Xingkai walked out of the crowd. Is Bu Xingkai going to fight? A glimmer of hope appeared in everyone's eyes. After all, Bu Xingkai was ranked 4th, which was higher than Duan Gang and Ling Tian. Everyone hoped that he could defeat Jian Wuchen. Even if he could not, he could force Jian Wuchen to use all his strength, which would give Zhang Muyun more confidence. I'm Bu Xingkai, a disciple of White Tiger Yard. May I know your name? Bu Xingkai cupped his fists. Who cares what your name is? Don't try to worm your way into being friends with me. Don't think that I will go easy on you. Jian Wuchen waved his hand casually, looking at Bu Xingkai with disdain. You, Bu Xingkai was speechless, and his face was gloomy. This was also the first time he saw a disciple from the Qilin courtyard. Their strength made him feel apprehensive. He originally wanted to make friends with them, but he didn't expect that he would use his hot face to stick to their cold butt. After being ridiculed in front of everyone, his face was completely lost. The storage ring on his hand shone, and a long spear appeared in his hand. Look at you. You can't be that strong. Hurry up and fight. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to fight. Jian Wuchen said. A cold light flashed in Bu Xinkai's eyes. Even Zhang Muyun and Duan Mu Yunyang had not underestimated him. Chi! Bu Xinkai made his move. The long spear pierced through the air and shot towards Jian Wuchen. Jian Wuchen smiled faintly. He still did not draw his sword, but used his sword finger to meet the attack. As he waved his sword, a sizzling sound rang out incessantly, and an endless stream of emerald sword chi burst forth. Ding ding ding, dense sounds of collision rang out. Then, Bu Xinkai was forced to retreat. He was obviously at a disadvantage. Toxic Dragon Drill! Bu Xinkai shouted and used his trump card. Chapter 139. Not bad. Ancient Jade 8 kill, human kill. Jian Wuchen shouted. A terrifying murderous aura filled the air, accompanied by a terrifying sword light. The sword light struck Bu Xinkai's poison dragon. Boom! The powerful force blasted a huge pit on the ground. If it weren't for some silver-ranked disciples and elders, the tables and chairs nearby would have been smashed into pieces. Clang! With a loud vibration, Bu Xinkai's spear flew out of his hand and pierced into a rockery in the distance. Bu Xinkai's body trembled violently as he retreated more than 20 steps. Before he could stabilize himself, a silver-level disciple of the White Tiger Hall moved and appeared behind Bu Xinkai, blocking his retreat. Puff! Bu Xinkai's expression changed drastically. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his hand trembled. Everyone saw that the sleeve on his right hand was tattered and his arm was covered with bloody scars. Those bloody scars were like small swords. What a domineering sword technique! What a domineering strength! Everyone sucked in a cold breath. Zhang Muyun, don't let these small fries do it. It's a waste of my time. You do it yourself. Let me see your strength. Jian Wuchen looked at Zhang Muyun. Everyone turned to look at Zhang Muyun. Now, they could only rely on Zhang Muyun. Lu Ming, who was ranked first, wasn't here. Good. I've long heard that the Qilin Hall only recruits peerless geniuses, and most of them have special bloodlines. Now that I've seen it for myself, the rumors are true. In the past, I wanted to ask the disciples of the Qilin Hall for guidance, but I couldn't. Zhang Muyun stepped forward, his eyes flashing like lightning. Brother Muyun, be careful. Zhuo Yirong said worriedly. Don't worry. Zhang Muyun smiled and walked over to Jian Wuchen. Zhang Muyun, make your move. Let's see if you're qualified to make me draw my sword. Jian Wuchen said indifferently. He was extremely confident. Arrogant. How can you not draw your sword when facing Zhang Muyun? How can Zhang Muyun's strength be compared to others? Some disciples on the bronze list whispered. They looked at Zhang Muyun with hope in their eyes. The only one who could save the honor of the bronze list was Zhang Muyun. Zhang Muyun smiled, not minding it. But in the next moment, a sharp, domineering, and indestructible aura erupted from Zhang Muyun's body. Jian Wuchen's complexion changed for the first time. He muttered in disbelief, "This is force, the force of metal." Behind them, the expressions of the young man holding the saber and the muscular young man also changed. How is that possible? A mere trash from the 4 great academies is actually able to comprehend force at the martial master realm? Damn it, how is this possible? The young man holding the saber shouted in disbelief. As someone with a special bloodline, he hadn't been able to comprehend force even though he was high and mighty. Yet, a piece of trash with an ordinary bloodline was able to comprehend force. He found it hard to accept. So what if you have a special bloodline? There are also peerless geniuses with ordinary bloodlines. There are even people who can awaken the bloodline of ancient divine beasts, which far surpasses special bloodlines. What's there to be arrogant about? A genius on the bronze list said. Seeing the horrified expressions of the few people from the Qilin courtyard, the spectators in the surroundings felt refreshed. He finally had a chance to refute. The young man holding the saber and the muscular young man had gloomy expressions. Humph, do you think you're a match for senior brother Jian just because you've comprehended force? How naive. The young man holding the saber snorted coldly. Jian Wuchen's complexion changed slightly before he recovered. He regained his confidence and said, Zhang Muyun, you've indeed exceeded my expectations. You have the qualifications to make me draw my sword, and you also have the qualifications to know my name. Remember, my name is Jian Wuchen. I'm someone you'll never be able to surpass in your lifetime. Bang! As soon as Jian Wuchen finished speaking, a sharp and all-conquering aura erupted from his body. Force, the force of metal. Jian Wuchen had actually comprehended the force of metal as well. He actually comprehended the force of metal as well. How is that possible? Could it be that the Qilin courtyard is so strong? During the Four Great Academies tournament, Lu Ming and Zhang Muyun had both displayed force and shocked the Four Great Academies. Both of them were known as geniuses that only appeared once every few years in the Mystic Essence Sword sect. But now, a random young man from the Qilin courtyard had actually comprehended force as well. It was truly a blow to their confidence. I know, he must have a special sword bloodline. I heard that special bloodlines have all sorts of miraculous abilities. Some people can comprehend force faster through their bloodline. A silver-robed elder spoke. Everyone's heart shook. A special bloodline is actually so miraculous. Clang! Their forces collided in the air and actually emitted the sound of metal clashing. There were even sparks that flew out. Clang! Clang! Two sword cries resounded. Both of them drew their swords at almost the same time. Two resplendent sword chi shot into the sky and an icy cold sword chi filled the entire sword dance courtyard. Two figures transformed into two sword lights and pounced at each other. Clang! A rumble resounded as sword chi wantonly erupted. The ground was swept by the sword chi, leaving behind dense sword marks. Swoosh! Swoosh! Figures flashed and several silver-robed elders appeared in front of them. An invisible force spread out and blocked the dense sword chi. For Season's sword technique, Bleak Autumn Wind. Ancient Jade 8 kills, Heavenly Kill. Two sword lights filled with destructive power met in the air. The two sword chi converged into one and soared into the sky. Bang! A large area of the ground beneath their feet was struck by the sword chi and sank deeply. Clang! 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 Following that, it was an intense confrontation. The two people unfolded a fierce battle. Everyone stared intently at the sky. Zhang Muyun, you have to win. Everyone was looking forward to Zhang Muyun's comeback. Not good, Zhang Muyun has already unleashed his bloodline, but Jian Wuchen hasn't. Suddenly, a low and deep voice was heard. Everyone was shocked. Zhang Muyun had already unleashed his bloodline and displayed his full strength, but Jian Wuchen had yet to unleash his bloodline. Without unleashing his bloodline, Jian Wuchen was actually able to tie with Zhang Muyun. The feeling that Jian Wuchen gave people was simply unfathomable. No one knew how much strength he had used. Jian Wuchen's cultivation method is definitely not a yellow rank cultivation method. It should be a black rank cultivation method. The true qi cultivated by a black rank cultivation method is more vigorous and condensed than a yellow rank cultivation method. A silver-robed elder explained to everyone. Moreover, his true qi contains an extremely strong sword aura. It's like a sword. It should be an advantage of his bloodline. Another silver-robed elder explained. Everyone suddenly understood. No wonder Jian Wuchen was so strong. His true qi was stronger than Zhang Muyun's. Then, their hearts turned cold. How could Jian Wuchen be so strong? Was the reputation of the Bronze List and the Four Great Academies destined to be ruined today? It's over. Ancient Jade 8 kills, Heavenly Kill. Chapter 140. Screech. A soft sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh could be heard, causing everyone's heart to jump. Then, everyone saw Zhang Muyan's figure retreating a dozen meters away and standing with his sword in hand. There was a bloody wound on his shoulder and blood was seeping out. Did Zhang Muyan lose? Everyone's heart turned cold. I've lost. The genius of the Qilin courtyard is indeed worthy of his reputation. Suddenly, Zhang Muyan let out a long sigh. You're not bad to be able to exchange so many moves with me, but that's all. You can't make me use my full strength. The 4 great academies and the bronze list are really disappointing. Jian Wuchen said with a contemptuous smile as he held his long sword in his hand. Many people's faces turned ugly, but they couldn't refute because the truth was right in front of them. The more they refuted, the more disgraceful it would be. Jian Wuchen, I'm indeed not your opponent, but I'm not the strongest on the bronze list. There's another person above me. Isn't it too early for you to insult the entire bronze list? Zhang Muyan frowned. Everyone's heart trembled. Yes, there was another person above Zhang Muyan. A peerless genius who rushed to the top of the bronze list in his first year in the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Lu Ming. Everyone thought of Lu Ming. 2 months ago, Lu Ming and Zhang Muyan fought. Although Lu Ming only had a slight upper hand. But with Lu Ming's astonishing improvement speed, would he be even stronger after 2 months? Would he be able to fight with Jian Wuchen? I know that you're only ranked 2nd on the bronze list. It's said that the first is a guy called Lu Ming. Where is he? Get him out here and fight with me. I want to completely crush him so that you guys won't have any delusions. Jian Wuchen said arrogantly. Although he had met Lu Ming in the coastal mountain range, he didn't know Lu Ming's name. Of course, he didn't know that he had already met Lu Ming, who was ranked 1st on the bronze list. Lu Ming isn't here today. Otherwise, he would definitely be able to fight with you. Ling Kong said in a deep voice. Can fight with me? You guys really know how to comfort yourselves. Then, tell him to come out. He's not here, right? Send someone to call him over so that I won't have to look for him in the future. Let's settle this once and for all today. Jian Wuchen said. Zhang Muyan, Duan Gang, Ling Kong, and the others were silent. They didn't know where Lu Ming was. Moreover, they weren't sure if Lu Ming could really fight Jian Wuchen. Why didn't you send someone to look for him? Did he know that he was no match for me? What number 1 on the bronze list? I think they're all the same. What Lu Ming? If I use my full strength, I can finish him off in 3 moves. Jian Wuchen sneered. The other 2 geniuses from the Qilin Academy also laughed loudly. It's a pity that that guy isn't here. Otherwise, I would be able to ruthlessly torture him. Jian Wuchen's gaze swept over the crowd. He was somewhat disappointed. Of course, he was looking for Lu Ming. Which son of a bitch is looking for me? At this moment, a clear voice came from afar. This voice was very familiar to many people. As soon as the voice sounded, most of their hearts skipped a beat. A name jumped into their minds, Lu Ming. Lu Ming is here. Their eyes quickly looked in the direction of the voice. Sure enough, they saw a young man in a black robe. He had a slender figure and a faint smile on his face. He had his hands behind his back as he walked over step by step. If it wasn't Lu Ming, who else could it be? Lu Ming really came. For some reason, most people couldn't help but feel hopeful and happy. Zhang Muyan, Ling Kong, Duan Gang, Bu Xingkai, Zhuirong, Qing Feilwan, they were all the same. They all subconsciously thought that as long as Lu Ming came, he would be able to defeat his opponent. When they came back to their senses, they were shocked. They didn't know why they had such a feeling. Perhaps it was because Lu Ming had created too many miracles in the 4 academies tournament. Jian Wuchen also turned his head to look. With a glance, a strong killing intent spread out from his body. Little bastard, it's you. Jian Wuchen shouted angrily. Son of a bitch, weren't you looking for me just now? Why are you so angry when you see me? Lu Ming still had a faint smile on his face. With his hands behind his back, He slowly walked over in a relaxed manner. "Kid, who are you? How dare you talk to senior brother Jian like that? You're courting death." The strong young man shouted coldly. His body was like a wild bull as he dashed toward Lu Ming. His huge fist was black and shiny, like metal. The strong young man wasn't there that day in the coastal mountain range, so he didn't know Lu Ming. Boom! The strong young man approached Lu Ming in an instant and punched his huge fist toward Lu Ming's head. Lu Ming still had a smile on his face as he punched back. Bang! The two fists collided, and then everyone heard the sound of bones breaking. Then, a tall figure flew back at a speed faster than he pounced and fell heavily to the ground. "My hand!" The strong young man roared. One of his arms was bent out of shape. Apparently, it was broken by Lu Ming's punch. So strong! The eyes of the people from the four great courtyards lit up. Just now, the strength of the strong young man was obvious to all. He had swept through all the experts below the top 10 of the bronze list. But now, his arm was broken by Lu Ming's casual punch. The gap was too big. Everyone couldn't help but feel hopeful. "Little bastard, so you're Lu Ming?" Jian Wuchen roared in an incomparably cold voice. "Of course." Lu Ming smiled faintly. He ignored Jian Wuchen and walked toward Zhang Muyun. When he was in front of Zhang Muyun, he cupped his fists and said, "Brother Muyun, congratulations. Congratulations on winning the heart of a beauty. Thank you, junior brother Lu, for personally coming to congratulate me." Zhang Muyun cupped his fists. "Thank you, junior brother Lu." Zhuoyirong, who was beside Zhang Muyun, also bowed. "Unfortunately, I came in a hurry today and didn't have time to prepare a gift." Lu Ming spread his hands and smiled. Zhang Muyun said, "It's good enough that junior brother Lu came. There's no need for a gift." The two chatted, completely ignoring Jian Wuchen. This made the killing intent in Jian Wuchen's eyes grow stronger. "Lu Ming, you dare to ignore me? Don't think that you can be arrogant in front of me just because you're number 1 on the bronze list. Today, I'll let you clearly understand the gap between you and me." Jian Wuchen's voice was filled with killing intent. At this moment, Lu Ming turned to look at Jian Wuchen. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he smiled. "Brother Muyun, I got it. I got my gift." Lu Ming laughed and walked toward Jian Wuchen. "Didn't you want to let me know the gap between us? Make your move. I'll defeat you in 3 moves." The surrounding people were stunned. What did Lu Ming say? Defeat Jian Wuchen in 3 moves? How was that possible? It was impossible. Could it be that Lu Ming had broken through to the martial Grandmaster realm? It shouldn't be that fast, right? Moreover, if Lu Ming was really a martial Grandmaster, what was the point of defeating Jian Wuchen? Chapter 141. Ha ha ha. Defeat me in 3 moves? Defeat me in 3 moves? Jian Wuchen laughed crazily as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Just now, he had said that he could defeat Lu Ming in 3 moves if he used his full strength. But now, Lu Ming actually said that he could defeat him in 3 moves? Wasn't this the funniest joke in the world? Lu Ming, anyone can boast, but without strength, it's just a joke. Jian Wuchen said coldly. Oh? Lu Ming seemed to find it reasonable. He pondered for a moment and nodded. Yes, without strength, it's just a joke. You will soon find out that you are this joke. It's useless to have a sharp tongue. Lu Ming, let me tell you, Autumn Moon is my woman. You dared to hold her hand that day. This is your fate. Since you held Autumn Moon's hand, your fate has been sealed. Today, I will cripple your hand, break your limbs, cripple your cultivation, and then throw you out of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Don't think that the sect will stand up for you just because you are the first on the bronze list. Let me tell you, your so-called first on the bronze list is trash compared to me. Jian Wuchen's voice was cold. Of course, this sentence was transmitted through voice transmission and no one else heard it. Autumn Moon. Don't even think about Autumn Moon. She is already my woman. Lu Ming said indifferently. What? Jian Wuchen was stunned as if he had been struck by lightning. He only reacted after a long while. His eyes were red and his handsome face was completely distorted, becoming extremely ferocious. He shouted hysterically, Lu Ming, you deserve to die. You are a lowly bastard. How dare you touch the woman that I, Jian Wuchen, have decided on? If I don't cripple you today, my name is not Jian Wuchen. Xiao. Jian Wuchen unsheathed his sword and madly charged at Lu Ming. Kill, kill, ancient jade 8 kills. Jian Wuchen roared and his murderous aura surged like a tide. Sparkling and translucent jade-like sword chi rushed at Lu Ming like a storm. A light flashed in his hand and the fiery tongue spear appeared. Moon seizing. The spear swept out and the red moonlight appeared. All of Jian Wuchen's sword chi was instantly destroyed. The spear didn't stop and continued to whip at Jian Wuchen's face. In an instant, the anger in Jian Wuchen's heart seemed to be extinguished by a bucket of cold water. Retreat, retreat. He quickly retreated and at the same time used his battle sword. Clang! The long spear swept over Jian Wuchen's long sword, and the fierce astral fire whipped Jian Wuchen's face, causing him to feel a burning pain. He quickly retreated by tens of meters, looking at Lu Ming in shock. The power of Lu Ming's spear earlier was extremely terrifying and beyond his imagination. How can he be so strong? He must have used some secret technique. He won't be able to hold on for long. Jian Wuchen S. In the surroundings, the bronze-list disciples, silver-list disciples, and silver-robed elders of the 4 great halls were dumbfounded. Flying Jian Wuchen with a single spear strike. How was this possible? Jian Wuchen was stronger than Zhang Muyan. Lu Ming actually sent him flying with a single spear. Wasn't this too exaggerated? In the past 2 months, Lu Ming had improved so much. It was too unbelievable. Compared to the 4 Academies tournament, Lu Ming's cultivation had risen to the peak of the 9th level of the martial master realm. The true dragon battle art had reached the 3rd level and the fiery astral spear art had also broken through. His combat strength had increased several times. It was normal to send Jian Wuchen flying with a single spear. Back in the coastal mountain range, I said I only used 20% of my strength, but you didn't believe me. Lu Ming's lips curled into a mocking smile as he looked at Jian Wuchen. Let's see how many moves you can use. Ancient Jade 8 kills, soul kill. Jian Wuchen roared and once again erupted with a powerful murderous aura. He merged with his sword and turned into a brilliant sword chi that charged at Lu Ming. Before the sword aura reached him, the glow of the sword aura was enough to make him dizzy. What a powerful sword technique. This kind of sword technique can actually affect the soul. Lu Ming's eyes moved slightly, and then he swept out with his spear again. Landslide. This time, Lu Ming used more strength. Bang! Just like before, the long spear swept out and the sword chi was destroyed. This time, Jian Wuchen could no longer resist and was sent flying by Lu Ming's spear. In the air, Jian Wuchen coughed out large mouthfuls of blood and smashed heavily into a rockery, causing it to explode. Good! The audience burst into cheers and was incomparably excited. If they hadn't forcefully restrained themselves, they would have jumped up. Too strong, too cool, they were not on the same level at all. They could only shout and vent the depression in their hearts. Previously, they were too sullen and couldn't stand up straight. But when Lu Ming arrived, he completely suppressed Jian Wuchen. How could they not be happy? Not far away, Zhang Muyan smiled bitterly. He already felt that Lu Ming's strength was unforgettable. Lu Ming, you trash, you dare to hurt me, I will peel your skin and pull out your tendons. Jian Wuchen roared hysterically. At this time, his hair was disheveled and his clothes were tattered. He was in a very sorry state. Lu Ming sneered and said, you keep calling others trash, but you were sent flying by my spear. I really don't know where you got your confidence from. Trash, trash, you are all trash. I have a special bloodline and is incomparably noble. How can trash like you compare to me? Jian Wuchen yelled. The audience was speechless. Lu Ming shook his head and said, "Don't be noisy and talk nonsense. I still have one more move. I'm too lazy to make another move. You, come at me together." With that, Lu Ming pointed at the young man with a saber. The audience was stunned. Lu Ming was challenging the young man with a saber and Jian Wuchen. 1 against 2. Jian Wuchen's face twisted crazily. This was blatant contempt. "Junior brother Lu, since this bastard is courting death, let's attack together and cripple him." Jian Wuchen shouted. "Okay." The saber chi whistled as the young man with a saber took out his saber. An extremely domineering saber chi soared into the sky. Then, there was a flash of blood. An ancient saber appeared above the young man's head, making the saber chi even more vigorous. The young man with a saber was at the peak of the 9th level martial master, but he had not comprehended force. On the other side, an ancient sword appeared above Jian Wuchen's head. As soon as the bloodline appeared, Jian Wuchen's sword chi and metal force erupted to the peak. The two of them unleashed their full strength at this moment. Kill! Kill! The young man with a saber and Jian Wuchen unleashed their strongest battle strength and used their strongest moves to kill Lu Ming. Saber light and sword chi filled half the sky. This power made many of the silver-ranked disciples' faces change color. Too strong. Their special bloodline was too terrifying. To them, fighting above their level was nothing out of the ordinary. This was something brought about by the Xiantian realm. Would Lu Ming be able to block it? Boom! At this moment, a powerful aura rose from Lu Ming's body. Chapter 142. Whoosh! Whoosh! Then, Lu Ming thrusted his spear twice in a row. The two spears were as fast as lightning, like two meteors streaking across the sky, illuminating the horizon with blazing flames. Boom! Boom! Then, the two meteors suddenly exploded, and a terrifying and violent power erupted in an instant. Sword chi, saber light, and blazing spear light swept out from the place where the three of them collided. Several silver-robed elders laid down a heavy defense, protecting the tables, chairs, and the disciples of the 4 courtyards behind them. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this time, a saber and a sword flew far away. At the same time, 2 screams were heard as 2 figures were thrown out, blood splattering in the sky. It was Jian Wuchen and the young man with a saber. When the light dissipated, Lu Ming stood motionless with his spear in hand. Victory, Lu Ming won. He fought 2 geniuses of the Qilin Academy alone, and it was still only one move. He swept his opponents with an unstoppable force. Too tyrannical. No matter what kind of genius you are, no matter what kind of special bloodline you have, one man with one spear will sweep the world. Everyone seemed to have seen such a scene. The clothes of Jian Wuchen and the young man with a saber were torn, and there were wounds on their bodies. They were in a sorry state. Lu Ming walked step by step toward Jian Wuchen, looking down at him, and said indifferently, "I said that I would defeat you in 3 moves. Now, it's just 3 moves. Lu Ming, just you wait. Sooner or later, I will kill you." Jian Wuchen looked at Lu Ming crazily, his eyes full of malevolence. "Look, you're here again. Didn't you just say that? A person who doesn't have the ability to talk big is a joke. Now, you can't even be considered a joke." Lu Ming mocked. "Speak, speak. I, Jian Wuchen, swear that I will return today's humiliation to you 10-fold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold. I will torture you. I will wantonly humiliate you in front of you. I will make you suffer so much that you wish you were dead. I will make you regret what you did today." Jian Wuchen roared like a mad dog. The murderous intent in his eyes was so dense that it almost materialized. He already hated Lu Ming to the bone. That bastard Trash actually dared to injure and defeat him in front of so many people. In his opinion, this was a great humiliation. Of course, he wouldn't think about humiliating others. In his opinion, it was only right. Lu Ming smiled, but there was a cold murderous intent in his smile. I, Lu Ming, hate it the most when people threaten me. You shouldn't have threatened me. Lu Ming's voice turned cold, and the killing intent on his body was not concealed at all. Jian Wuchen's heart couldn't help but turn cold as he shouted, "What do you want? What are you doing? Didn't you just say that you wanted to cripple me? Now that you've come to threaten me, in order to prevent future troubles, of course I have to cripple you." Lu Ming smiled faintly. Cripple me? You dare? Lu Ming, you are a piece of trash. Do you know who I am? I have a special bloodline, a disciple of the Qilin Courtyard, the future overlord of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect, the future pillar. You dare to cripple me? Jian Wuchen laughed as if he had heard a joke. But he only laughed halfway before he couldn't laugh anymore. Because he found that Lu Ming's eyes were cold and firm, unshakable. His heart turned cold as a bone-piercing chill rose from his tailbone and rushed to the top of his head. He hurriedly shouted, "No, don't," whoosh. Before he could finish his words, Lu Ming's long spear pierced his dantian, shattering the cyclone in his dantian. Jian Wuchen was stunned for a long time before he let out a heart-wrenching scream, "Aw, my dantian, my cultivation, Lu Ming, you bastard, trash, you actually crippled my cultivation. You will die a horrible death." Hiss, gasps could be heard from the audience. Lu Ming really crippled Jian Wuchen's cultivation. What a decisive character, what a ruthless method, and what guts. Jian Wuchen was a peerless genius of the Qilin Courtyard. He had a special bloodline and was the focus of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect. He had been hiding in secret for fear of being assassinated by other sections. But now, his cultivation had been crippled by someone from his own sect. It's good that you crippled him. If it were me, I wouldn't hesitate either. Ling Kong's eyes flashed with ferocity as he said coldly. The others were speechless. Who was like you, a monster who didn't care about the consequences? Lu Ming, you're finished. You crippled my cultivation. You can't escape. I'm a genius of the Qilin Courtyard. The sect will definitely seek justice for me. You're dead. Jian Wuchen still roared. But Lu Ming's face was incomparably calm. He looked at Jian Wuchen indifferently and said, "Idiot." What? Jian Wuchen was a little stunned. Let me ask you, what are you relying on? Lu Ming suddenly asked. Jian Wuchen desperately clutched his dantian in a daze. The others were also the same. They didn't know why Lu Ming asked this question. Your reliance is nothing more than your special bloodline and your talent. You rely on your special bloodline and think that you're high and mighty. You look down on others and treat them as trash. With your special bloodline, the sect has to take care of you in every way possible and spend a lot of resources to nurture you. All of this is brought about by your bloodline and talent. Lu Ming said. Yes, I was born noble. How can you be envious? Jian Wuchen said. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He looked down at Jian Wuchen and said word by word, however, the talent that you think you have is better than trash in front of me. Your so-called talent is nothing in front of me. Do you think the sect will punish me, a person whose talent is far above yours, for a trash like you whose cultivation has been crippled? Is it possible? Rumble. Every word of Lu Ming's was like a thunderclap that exploded in Jian Wuchen's mind. Yes, Lu Ming's talent is far above mine. His value to the Mystic Essence Sword Sect is also far above mine. Why would they punish Lu Ming for a trash like me? It's impossible. Maybe the sect's higher-ups will even spare no effort to nurture Lu Ming. No, it's not like this. It can't be, it can't be. Jian Wuchen roared in despair. He couldn't accept all this. He knew that he could only be crippled in vain. The sect would never stand up for him. The others also came to a realization. It was indeed so. Lu Ming's talent was comparable to geniuses like Duan Mulin and Feng Wuji. Ordinary special bloodlines were inferior to him. How could they really punish him? Today is Brother Mu Yun's big day. Hurry up and take him away from me. Lu Ming no longer looked at Jian Wuchen, who was like a pile of mud, and turned his gaze to the saber-wielding youth. At this time, the saber-wielding youth and the strong youth were scared out of their wits. They didn't dare to say anything. They quickly dragged Jian Wuchen, who was still shouting, out of the courtyard. Chapter 143. Today was really full of twists and turns. In the beginning, Jian Wuchen and the others arrived and displayed their supreme and incomparably powerful strength. They almost swept away all the geniuses on the bronze list. No one on the bronze list was a match for them. In the end, even Zhang Muyun was defeated. Everyone thought that the bronze list's reputation would be ruined today. But at that moment, Lu Ming arrived. He crushed the geniuses of the Qilin Academy with his jaw-dropping strength. In the end, he even crippled Jian Wuchen, turning the situation around. Today, not only would the honor of the bronze list not be damaged, but it would also rise to a higher level because of Lu Ming. The disciples of the four great academies would feel that the mysterious Qilin Academy was only a so-so. So what if they had a special bloodline? Ordinary life forms with bloodlines could still defeat them. Duan Mulin was like that. He suppressed the Qilin Academy and was known as the leader of the four great geniuses. Now, it was Lu Ming. This way, the disciples of the four great academies would be more confident and their beliefs would be firmer. Brother Muyun, this is my gift. Are you satisfied? At that moment, Lu Ming turned around and smiled. Ha ha ha, junior brother Lu's gift can be said to be unprecedented. Please take a seat. Zhang Muyun laughed and invited Lu Ming to sit with him. Lu Ming smiled cheerfully and went forward to take a seat. At that moment, someone had already come to tidy up the battlefield. Not long after, the battlefield was roughly tidied up and the dishes began to be served. The banquet began and the atmosphere was lively. Senior brother Zhang, I'll toast you. Not long after, someone began to toast. After toasting Zhang Muyun, it was time to toast Lu Ming. Ling Kong carried a wine jar and came in front of Lu Ming. He said, Lu Ming, you're really generous today. I, Ling Kong, have never been convinced by anyone, but now, I'm convinced by you. Give me 3 big bowls. After saying that, Ling Kong carried the wine jar and gulped it down. Come. Lu Ming stood up, picked up the big bowl, and drank 3 bowls in a row. Alright, junior brother Lu Ming is heroic. I'll also toast you 3 bowls. Duan Gang stood up and also carried a wine jar. Lu Ming did not refuse any of them. He raised his bowl and drank heartily. Seeing that Lu Ming didn't put on any airs, everyone had a better impression of Lu Ming. They all came forward to propose a toast, and the atmosphere was very lively. Of course, there were exceptions, such as the disciples of the White Tiger sect. Their eyes flickered as they sat off to the side awkwardly. Some of them even had gloomy expressions. They were the only ones who weren't happy that Lu Ming had defeated Jian Wuchen and the others. The stronger Lu Ming was, the more disadvantageous it would be for the Duanmu clan. Everyone toasted each other and soon, 3 rounds of wine had passed. During the 4 academies tournament, although they were opponents, that was only on the battle stage. Since they were all disciples of the mystic origin sword sect, there was no grudge between them. Furthermore, they were all youngsters, so it didn't take long for them to bond with one another. For example, although Qing Feilwan was a girl, she was incomparably heroic. Relying on the fact that she was also a disciple of the Vermilion Bird sect like Lu Ming, she forced Lu Ming to drink a jar of wine. In the end, she drank until her eyes were blurry and her face was red. She was incomparably beautiful. Ling Kong, Duan Gang, Dong Su, and the other perverts howled incessantly as they surrounded Qing Feilwan. A few silver-robed elders were drinking at the side. Their eyes were filled with anticipation as they looked at these youths. This was the Jianghu. This was the spirit of youths, filled with passion and passion. They competed with each other, but they didn't lack friendship. These youths were the future pillars of the mystic origin sword sect. They couldn't wait to see this group of youths grow up. After 3 rounds of wine, it was already late at night. The banquet finally ended. Everyone gathered in groups and returned home. That night, Lu Ming didn't cultivate. After returning to his dormitory, he had a good night's sleep. When he woke up the next day, it was already noon. Lu Ming felt refreshed. As he stretched his body, a thunderous sound rang out from his body. He opened the door and walked out. He saw Pang Shi returning from outside the courtyard with a face full of excitement. Upon seeing Lu Ming, Pang Shi said excitedly, "Senior brother Lu Ming, you're really amazing. Yesterday at senior brother Zhang Muyan's banquet, you defeated the genius of the Qilin courtyard in 3 moves. Now the news has spread throughout the sect." After saying that, Pang Shi looked at Lu Ming with incomparable admiration. The speed of the news is really fast. Lu Ming thought to himself. Senior brother Lu Ming, do you know? I've become a celebrity now. Because I'm in the same dormitory as you, as long as I walk out, there will be a group of female disciples surrounding me. Pang Shi continued. A group of female disciples surrounding you? What for? Lu Ming was stunned. Pang Shi grinned and said, "Of course it's to find out about your news and hobbies. What kind of girls do you like? Do you have anyone you like? And after the news about you spread yesterday, this trend became even more terrifying." Ah! Lu Ming was dumbfounded. Then, he smiled bitterly. He didn't expect such an outcome. Sigh. It seems that it's not good to be too famous. Lu Ming sighed happily. Those girls were too enthusiastic. I couldn't resist and told you everything I know. Senior brother Lu Ming, you won't blame me, right? Pang Shi looked at Lu Ming and said. Thank you for your hard work, Big Stone. Lu Ming patted Pang Shi's shoulder and then asked casually, by the way, what did you say? I said that you like plump and mature girls and that you already have someone you like. It's Elder Mullins. Pang Shi said. WH. What? Lu Ming staggered and almost fell. He looked at Pang Shi with a dumbfounded face and said, You really said that? Oh my God, who told you that? The flower addict told me. He said that you always want to take advantage of Elder Mullins. He said that he wants to cut ties with you and said that you forget friendship when you're in love. And through my observation, what he said is quite reasonable. Pang Shi scratched his head and said. Reasonable? Reasonable my ass. Lu Ming's forehead was full of black lines. He gritted his teeth and said, Flower addict, I'm not done with you. Senior brother Lu Ming, why are you angry? What I said was quite effective. Many girls left with a sad face and said that they won't pester you anymore. Pang Shi continued. Lu Ming almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. If this news spread to Mullins, how could he face Mullins? Mullins wouldn't misunderstand, right? At this moment, Lu Ming could only smile bitterly and cry without tears. Seeing Lu Ming's appearance, Pang Shi asked with concern, Senior brother Lu Ming, what's wrong with you? Are you not feeling well? Were you injured in the battle yesterday? No, I want to be alone. Lu Ming had a tired expression on his face. Oh, okay, then I won't disturb you. Pang Shi said and then returned to his room. Lu Ming wanted to cry but had no tears. He wondered if he should explain to Mullins. Forget it, I don't care. But then again, it's normal for me to have some thoughts about senior sister Mullins's appearance and figure. Hee hee. Lu Ming chuckled. Very quickly, he adjusted himself and strolled outside. These few days, Lu Ming didn't intend to cultivate and planned to relax. Chapter 144. For the next 7 days, Lu Ming rested whenever he wanted. He went out for a walk whenever he wanted. He casually strolled around the various scenic spots of the Vermilion Bird Peak. Every day, he only spent 2 hours cultivating the true dragon battle art and polishing his true chi. After 7 days of rest, Lu Ming was full of energy. His body and mind were empty. All negative emotions, stress, and worries were thrown aside. Senior brother Lu Ming, do you want to attend the class? There's an elder who's talking about some basic knowledge of alchemy today. Pang Shi asked Lu Ming when he saw him in the courtyard. Basic knowledge of alchemy? Lu Ming revealed an interested expression. Even if a cultivator wasn't an inscription master and didn't know how to refine pills, knowing some basic knowledge of alchemy would still be of great help to him. For example, if you encountered a precious spiritual herb in the wilderness but didn't know what it was, it would be awkward. Also, some spiritual herbs had to be picked carefully. If you picked them carelessly, they would lose their medicinal properties. As for the true dragon battle art that Lu Ming cultivated, he often needed to mix many ingredients together. Although there was a secret recipe in the true dragon battle art, it would be easier to concoct it if he knew some alchemy. Lu Ming had long wanted to learn some basic knowledge of alchemy. Let's go together. Lu Ming smiled and walked out with Pang Shi. It was still the same square where he attended the class last time. At this moment, there were already hundreds of people here. It's senior brother Lu Ming. Hello, senior brother Lu Ming. Those who came here to listen to the basic knowledge of alchemy were all new disciples. When they saw Lu Ming, they all greeted him respectfully. Now, Lu Ming was an idol in their eyes. He was in the same batch as them, but his achievements were worlds apart. Many of them had yet to break through to the martial master realm. There were even many young female disciples who glanced at Lu Ming with their big watery eyes from time to time. Lu Ming rubbed his nose and pretended not to know. Why is it Elder Mulin's? At the side, Pang Shi exclaimed in surprise. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he raised his head to look. Sure enough, above the square, there was a graceful figure leisurely walking over. It was Mulin's. Mulin swept her gaze across the crowd. When she saw Lu Ming, she was slightly stunned. Her eyes flickered for a moment before returning to normal. She opened her mouth and said, "Today, I'll talk about some basic knowledge of alchemy. Most of you might not become inscription masters, but it's still good to know a little more. Now, let's start with the basic ingredients and identification." Following that, Mulin's talked non-stop, talking about some basic knowledge of alchemy. Lu Ming listened attentively. Mulin's lecture lasted for a few hours. Lu Ming listened as if he was intoxicated. He felt that he had benefited a lot. Could it be that senior sister Mulin's is also an inscription master? Lu Ming pondered. Alright, that's all for today. You guys can go back. Mulin's announced. Then, she looked at Lu Ming. Her eyes flickered as she said, "Lu Ming, you stay." Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Everyone looked at Lu Ming. Then, they thought of the rumors they heard during this period. Elder Mulin's asked Lu Ming to stay alone again. Could it be that the rumors I heard are true? It can't be, right? Lu Ming really likes Elder Mulin's. This is very normal. Any man would like her. I like her too. Instantly, there was a wave of whispers in the crowd. Why aren't you leaving? Mulan furrowed her brows and shouted. The others were shocked and hurriedly left. Senior brother Lu Ming, do your best. Before Pang Shi left, he even gave Lu Ming an encouraging look. This made Lu Ming's eyelids twitch and he was speechless. Soon, only Lu Ming and Mulin's were left in the plaza. Cough cough. Mulin's coughed a few times and said, "Lu Ming, I heard that you defeated the genius of the Qilin courtyard in 3 moves. This is really out of my expectations. Thank you for senior sister Mulin's praise. I was just lucky." Lu Ming said politely. But I have to tell you that the divine wilderness continent is vast and boundless. There are countless empires. The Blazing Sun Empire is just a drop in the ocean in front of the entire divine wilderness continent. Naturally, there are countless geniuses. Although you have some achievements now, compared to those true monsters, there is still a huge gap. So, you must not slack off. At your age, you must put all your attention on cultivation. You must not think about other things. Mullins warned seriously. It's coming. Lu Ming knew that Mullins had finally reached the main topic. I have been working hard on my cultivation. I wonder what senior sister Mullins is referring to by other things. Lu Ming asked knowingly. This. You don't know? Mullins's eyes flashed as she said. Of course I don't know. I have been cultivating in seclusion for this period of time. I don't know what happened. Lu Ming continued to play dumb. This, Mullins's face was a little red. Her pair of beautiful eyes were misty. After hesitating for a long time, she gritted her teeth and said, during this period of time, there are rumors outside that the person you like is me. Is it true? Ah. Is there such a thing? Lu Ming pretended to be shocked. Then, he held his chin with one hand and looked up and down at Mullins. Mullins felt uncomfortable all over. Her beautiful eyes stared and said, Lu Ming, what do you mean by this? Senior sister Mulan, you're devastatingly beautiful and unparalleled. Which man wouldn't be tempted by you? Lu Ming did not answer her question. His eyes continued to look around, and an inexplicable smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Mullins's heart skipped a beat and said, could it be that the rumors outside are true? Hee. Lu Ming smiled and slowly approached Mullins. His eyes looked straight into Mullins's eyes. Mullins's heart could not help but beat wildly. Her face turned red, and she tried her best to calm herself down. But Lu Ming's body and face were getting closer and closer. In the end, they could even feel each other's breathing. Mullins's cheeks were red, her heart was beating like thunder. Her pair of beautiful big eyes were misty, revealing a trace of panic. At this time, Lu Ming suddenly smiled and said, it's fake. After saying that, Lu Ming turned around and left with a big smile, leaving behind a dazed Mullins. After a long while, Mullins's voice rang out in the square. She gnashed her teeth and shouted, Lu Ming, who had already walked far away, suddenly shivered inexplicably. Could it be that I played too much just now? Lu Ming whispered. But when he thought of Mullins's embarrassed look just now, his mood improved, and a smile appeared on his face. Senior brother Lu Ming, did you succeed? A figure suddenly jumped out of a clump of grass at the side. Lu Ming was startled. Nest, big stone, what are you hiding here for? Seeing that it was Pang Shi, Lu Ming was speechless. Of course I'm waiting for your good news, senior brother Lu Ming. I just saw senior brother Lu Ming smiling foolishly all the way. How was it? Was the confession a success? Pang Shi's eyes lit up. What confession? What nonsense? Big stone, don't talk nonsense. I think you've been led astray by that flower addict. Lu Ming's face was full of black lines. Is it not true? Pang Shi scratched his head. Of course not. Big stone, I'm telling you, don't talk nonsense when you go out. Also, don't listen to flower addicts' nonsense. Chapter 145. Pang Shi nodded, indicating that he understood. Lu Ming shook his head, indicating that he was speechless. Not long after, the two of them returned to the dormitory. After returning to the dormitory, Lu Ming began to cultivate diligently again. After 7 days of relaxation, Lu Ming was full of energy and his mind was clear. Cultivating martial skills was even easier. 3 days later, the airborne steps broke through again, reaching the 3rd level. The 3rd level of a black class upper martial skill was equivalent to the 6th level of a black class lower martial skill. At this stage of the airborne steps, Lu Ming could already walk on snow without leaving a trace and walk on the tips of the grass. This was the real meaning of flying on grass. If he continued to break through, walking on water would not be a problem. At this stage, Lu Ming spent more time on the true dragon art of combat and the blazing Vajra art. The cultivation of the physical body was indeed very slow. After a few months of cultivation, Lu Ming's physical body was still at the second-grade lesser mastery. There was still a long way to go before he reached the second-grade greater mastery. As for his cultivation, Lu Ming felt that he had reached the peak of the martial master realm. He was very close to the martial grandmaster realm, only a step away. Moreover, Lu Ming did not need to stop to accumulate, because he cultivated the true art of the battle dragon and had already reached the third level. The density of his true qi was 4 times that of ordinary true qi. He had already accumulated enough. As long as he cultivated to perfection, he would naturally be able to break through. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, another 20 days had passed. The Mystic Essence Sword sect welcomed the annual disciple recruitment. Lu Ming had joined the Mystic Essence Sword sect for exactly a year. These few days, the Mystic Sword City was extremely lively. There were energetic young men and women everywhere. On the day of the assessment, there was a long queue in front of the Mystic Essence Sword sect's mountain gate. Lu Ming walked casually and came to a square near the front of the mountain. Those who passed the assessment had to come here to choose which courtyard to join. Come, join the Azure Dragon Courtyard. The Azure Dragon Courtyard is the oldest among the 4 courtyards. Come to our White Tiger Courtyard. The strongest among the 4 courtyards is our White Tiger Courtyard. The disciples of the 4 great academies were shouting here. On the square, the new disciples who had passed the test were gathered in 2s and 3s to discuss. Let's join the White Tiger Hall. The White Tiger Hall is the strongest among the 4 halls. If you join the White Tiger Hall, you will definitely have a brighter future. What do you know? Do you know that there's a bronze ranking for the 4 great academies' bronze ranked disciples? I've heard that the first and second place on the bronze ranking aren't from the White Tiger Hall. I've heard of that as well. It's said that the number 1 on the bronze rankings is Lu Ming from the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. He's a disciple who just entered last year and rushed to the top of the bronze rankings the moment he entered. It's said that not long ago, he even defeated a disciple from the Qilin Courtyard who had a special bloodline. What? How did you know that? My big brother is a silver-ranked disciple, of course it was him who told me. Then shall we join the Vermilion Bird Courtyard? All right. A few youths discussed for a while before walking towards the entrance of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Let's go, I want to join the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Lu Ming is my idol, and also my goal. I must become the newcomer king this year. On the other side, a few youths walked over. One of the youths who was full of heroic spirit said, "Chasing after Lu Ming? With just you? Aren't you thinking too much? How can an ordinary person catch up to such a person?" Another youth said in disdain. The few of them argued and went towards the Vermilion Bird Courtyard to register. The Vermilion Bird Courtyard's disciple who was in charge of registration couldn't stop smiling. The disciples from the other courtyards were incomparably envious. Lu Ming smiled. He didn't expect that he would be so famous now. Even many youths who hadn't entered the courtyard had heard of his name. Furthermore, he had promoted the Vermilion Bird Courtyard's disciple recruitment, which was something he didn't expect. After that, Lu Ming didn't stop and walked towards the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Junior brother Lu Ming. At this moment, a Vermilion Bird Courtyard's disciple who was in charge of registration saw Lu Ming and greeted him with a smile. Immediately, the gazes of those disciples who had just entered the courtyard gathered on Lu Ming. Lu Ming. Could he be Lu Ming? He's so young. He's about the same age as us. Nonsense, Lu Ming entered the courtyard last year. Of course he's about the same age as us. He's Lu Ming. He's so handsome. There were both male and female disciples who had just entered the courtyard. They all looked at Lu Ming with admiration. Lu Ming smiled bitterly and nodded towards the senior disciple. Then, he walked towards the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. It's time to break through to the martial Grand Master realm. Lu Ming muttered. He came out today mainly to relax and adjust his state of mind. He was preparing to break through to the martial Grandmaster realm. He wasn't the first person on the bronze list to break through. Half a month ago, he heard that Zhang Muyun had already broken through to the martial Grandmaster realm. He believed that many geniuses who had stayed on the bronze list for 1 or 2 years would choose to break through. Along the way, Lu Ming didn't return to the dormitory. Instead, he walked towards the top of the Vermilion Bird Peak. The place he wanted to go was called the Phoenix Resting Cave. It was one of the more famous cultivation grounds in the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Legend had it that a true phoenix once lived there. Hence, it was called the Phoenix Resting Cave. Of course, this was only a legend. Not many people believed it. A true phoenix was an immemorial divine beast. It had long disappeared from the world. Some people speculated that in the distant past, there might have been a supreme flying beast living there. The spiritual chi in the Phoenix Resting Cave was extremely rich. Moreover, it leaned towards the fire attribute. It was very suitable for a breakthrough. Under normal circumstances, if a disciple of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard wanted to enter the Phoenix Resting Cave to cultivate, they had to pay contribution points. Moreover, it wasn't something that could be entered with contribution points. The quota was extremely limited. However, Lu Ming didn't need contribution points. This was the reward given to him by the Vermilion Bird Courtyard when he won first place in the 4-courtyard tournament. He could enter the Phoenix Resting Cave to cultivate for a month. Lu Ming's journey was smooth. Soon, he arrived in front of the Phoenix Resting Cave. The entrance of the Phoenix Resting Cave was sealed by a stone gate. In front of the gate, there was an old man guarding it. The old man had his eyes closed and was motionless. Stop! The Phoenix Resting Cave is an important place in the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. You can't enter at will. Suddenly, the elder guarding the door opened his eyes. Lu Ming seemed to see 2 beams of sword gleams shooting out. An aura as strong as a mountain emanated from the elder's body. An expert. He's definitely a martial arts grandmaster expert. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. I'm here to cultivate in the Phoenix Resting Cave. Lu Ming cupped his fists and bowed. Cultivate? If I remember correctly, there's no quota for this month. The old man said. I'm Lu Ming. Principal Yen said that I can come at any time. Lu Ming took out his identity jade badge and handed it to the old man. You're Lu Ming. The old man's eyes lit up. He took the identity jade badge and smiled. Not bad. You can enter at any time. The time limit is 1 month. Go in. The old man returned the identity jade badge to Lu Ming. With a wave of his hand, the stone gate of the Phoenix Resting Cave opened. Thank you, Senior. Chapter 146. As soon as Lu Ming entered the Phoenix Perch Cave, he felt a strong surge of heaven and earth spiritual energy. What a strong heaven and earth spiritual energy. It's more than 10 times stronger than outside. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. He had just entered the cave and there was already such a strong heaven and earth spiritual energy. If he cultivated here for a long time, his cultivation speed would definitely be terrifying. Unfortunately, this was impossible because the rate of heaven and earth spiritual energy was limited. Lu Ming continued walking. After about 10 meters, Lu Ming saw that there were stone rooms on both sides of the cave. They must be for the people who came in to cultivate. Lu Ming continued walking. The heaven and earth spiritual energy became even stronger. After 100 meters, the heaven and earth spiritual energy was more than 10 times stronger than outside. This was the place with the strongest heaven and earth spiritual energy in the Phoenix Perch Cave. Lu Ming did not continue walking. He walked into a stone room at the side and closed the stone door. Lu Ming sat down cross-legged. With a flash of blood, the spirit-devouring bloodline appeared. After his bloodline was promoted to rank 5, the spirit-devouring bloodline grew a little. It was no different from a small snake. When the spirit-devouring bloodline appeared, it opened its mouth and sucked. The heaven and earth spiritual energy in the surroundings surged and gathered towards Lu Ming. It was absorbed by the bloodline and turned into energy that entered Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming circulated the true dragon battle art and continuously refined the energy that entered his body into true qi. Lu Ming's cultivation continued to solidify and approached the martial Grand Master realm. Lu Ming was not in a hurry to break through. Instead, he continued to polish his realm and strengthen his foundation. In the blink of an eye, 20 days passed. It's time. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. The qi vortex in his dantian spun rapidly. The true qi in his meridians surged like a river. Every stream of true qi was like a small true dragon. Roar! Roar! Lu Ming could even hear the roar of a dragon. All the true qi gathered together and started to break through the bottleneck of the martial Grand Master realm. Boom! Boom! A series of thunderous booms resounded in the air. Of course, the outside world couldn't hear it. All of this was happening inside Lu Ming's body. Time and time again, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth continued to gather and flow into Lu Ming's body, replenishing his true energy. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Ming's body suddenly shook, and a powerful aura erupted from Lu Ming's body. This aura was 10 times stronger than before. At this moment, Lu Ming's body was like a black hole. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth was crazily converging towards Lu Ming. All of it was absorbed by Lu Ming and transformed into an even more majestic true energy. So powerful. Is this the strength of a martial Grand Master? His true qi is 10 times stronger than the peak of the 9th level martial master. Lu Ming was delighted. Condense. With a thought, Lu Ming gently waved his right hand, and a fiery red spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Condensing qi into a weapon, this was something only a martial Grand Master could do. Condensing qi into a weapon was like condensing a substance. Although it couldn't compare to a real spiritual weapon, it wasn't too far off. The key was that as long as one's true qi was not exhausted, it would be endless. Shwa! Lu Ming waved his hand, and the spear in his hand shot out like lightning. With a cheat sound, it pierced through the wall of the stone room, and more than half of it went in. However, as soon as the spear left his hand, it turned into energy and dissipated between heaven and earth. It was said that when one reached the advanced martial Grand Master realm, the condensed weapon would not dissipate. It could stay for a few days, and could even be lent to others to fight. It was similar to a real weapon. After breaking through to the martial Grand Master realm, Lu Ming's combat strength had increased tremendously. However, Lu Ming did not leave immediately. Instead, he continued to cultivate. He only had a month to cultivate in the Phoenix Perch Cave. There were still a few days left, so he could use it to consolidate his cultivation. A few days passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming stood up and walked out of the Phoenix Perch Cave, returning to his dormitory. After returning to the dormitory, he saw Hua Qi sitting in the courtyard in a daze. No one knew what he was thinking. Lu Ming, you're back. I've been waiting for you for a few days. Seeing Lu Ming push open the door, Hua Qi's eyes lit up. Waiting for me? What's the matter? Lu Ming asked. I'm going to leave the Mystic Essence Sword sect for a while. I wanted to say goodbye to you. Hua Qi said. Leave the Mystic Essence Sword sect? Where are you going? Lu Ming was stunned. Hua Qi sighed, as if he had a lot on his mind. After a while, he said, something happened at home, so I have to rush back. I'm afraid I won't return to the Mystic Essence Sword sect for a long time. Won't return to the Mystic Essence Sword sect for a long time? Lu Ming frowned slightly. Actually, Hua Qi had always been very mysterious in his eyes. Hua Qi had never mentioned his background. Even Lu Ming and Pang Shi didn't know what Hua Qi's bloodline rank was. They only knew that Hua Qi's talent was shocking. When he first entered the sect, Hua Qi's cultivation was in the martial master realm. After a year, Hua Qi's cultivation had risen to the martial master realm. This was already shocking for an ordinary genius. It was definitely a top talent. Moreover, they only knew that Hua Qi was very rich. Before, they were all friends, so Lu Ming and Pang Shi didn't ask too much. After all, everyone had their own secrets. But now, Lu Ming was curious. But since Hua Qi didn't say anything, Lu Ming wouldn't ask either. Then we'll meet again. Lu Ming clasped his fists. Lu Ming, Big Stone accepted a mission to exterminate the Dongyi tribe 7 days ago. He's heading to Dongke City. When you see him, help me say goodbye to him. Hua Qi continued. Okay, no problem. Wait, exterminate the Dongyi tribe? What's going on? Lu Ming started to nod, but suddenly remembered something and asked in surprise. The Dongyi tribe was a tribe that lived in the coastal mountains. They had millions of people and could communicate with beasts. They were a big threat to the east of the Burning Sun Empire. The east of the Burning Sun Empire was guarded by the Mystic Essence Sword sect. The Dongyi tribe couldn't do anything and could only hide in the coastal mountains. Could it be that the Dongyi tribe was making a move again? Hua Qi nodded and said, 10 days ago, the Dongyi tribe sent out 100,000 troops to attack the area around Dongke City. They took down 6 cities in a row, but were stopped at Dongke City. The sect has issued a mission for the disciples of the 4 great schools to go and exterminate the Dongyi tribe. Killing the Dongyi tribe and the demonic beasts they lead will earn you a corresponding amount of contribution points. Right now, many disciples of the 4 great schools are heading to Dongke City. Lu Ming nodded and roughly knew what was going on. The coastal mountains were endless and covered the east of the Burning Sun Empire. The Mystic Essence Sword sect was only near the middle of the coastal mountains. There was still a long distance to the north and south. Dongke City was about 20,000 miles south of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. It was close to the coastal mountains. Don't worry, I'll tell Big Stone. Lu Ming nodded and said. Okay, then I'll be going. Hua Qi said and walked out. After a few steps, he stopped and said, Lu Ming, if there's a chance, you and Big Stone can come to the Imperial City and find me. The Imperial City? Lu Ming's eyes suddenly brightened. Was Hua Qi's family in the Imperial City? Hua Qi didn't say much and walked out, disappearing in the blink of an eye. The Imperial City? I'll go there sooner or later. Chapter 147. Lu Ming pondered for a while before heading to the mission hall. He was going to accept the mission to exterminate the Eastern barbarians. Killing the Eastern barbarians and their demonic beasts would not only earn him contribution points, but Lu Ming could also devour their blood essence to increase his cultivation. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Arriving at the mission hall, he easily accepted the mission. After receiving the mission token, Lu Ming rushed to Dongke City. He did not ride on his mount, but used his movement skill to rush over. With his current movement skill, he was much faster than the green scale horse. Moreover, the process of rushing over was also a process of cultivating his movement skill. Using the airborne steps, Lu Ming's body was as light as a gust of wind. He stepped on the grass with the tip of his foot and flew dozens of meters forward. He was as light as a swan and disappeared in the blink of an eye. At this speed, Lu Ming arrived at the outskirts of Dongke City in merely 3 days. Dongke City was undoubtedly a big city. The city walls were more than 30 meters tall, which was many times larger than Firestorm City. At this time, the gates of Dongke City were tightly shut, and the city walls were guarded by soldiers in iron armor. The city was heavily guarded. Stop, who are you? When Lu Ming arrived at the city gates, an armored general on the city walls shouted. I am a disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Lu Ming took out his jade identity token and waved it gently. The token flew up the city walls. You are indeed a disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Open the city gates. After checking the jade identity token, the armored general threw it back to Lu Ming and ordered. Crack crack, the city gates opened slightly and Lu Ming walked in. After Lu Ming entered, the city gates closed immediately. Behind the city gates, there were many armored soldiers on guard. There were more of them than on the city walls. Dongke City was guarded by a legion of the Burning Sun Empire. There were 50,000 soldiers, all of whom were elites. Their purpose was to intimidate the eastern barbarians. Now that the royal family was on the decline and the sects were on the rise, although the armies of the Burning Sun Empire still listened to the royal family on the surface, they actually listened to the sects more. Take Dongke City's army for example. On the surface, it appeared that they were under the command of the imperial family, but in reality, they were under the command of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Therefore, they would report to the Mystic Essence Sword sect whenever something happened. Young hero, the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect are all in the first camp. Let me take you there. A soldier walked up to Lu Ming and said. All right. Lu Ming nodded. He followed the soldier and headed to the first camp. As soon as he entered the camp, he heard a commotion. What a joke. You guys haven't even reached Martial Master Realm Stage 4, yet you actually dare to accept this mission. Are you guys really fucking crazy for contribution points? You really don't want to live anymore. Let me tell you, if you embarrass our Mystic Essence Sword sect on the battlefield, I won't forgive you. A few trash below the 4th level of the Martial Master Realm. When the time comes, no one will save you. Arrogant voices sounded in Lu Ming's ears. Lu Ming followed the voice and walked over. As he got closer, he saw a few groups of people gathered together. They were obviously disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Big Stone. Lu Ming spotted Pang Shi among the small group of people at one glance. At that moment, Pang Shi's face was flushed red. He was blocked by another group of people with 3 or 4 other people. Our cultivation is low, but we won't charge at the front. We can at least kill some scattered Dongi tribesmen, right? Pang Shi said in a low, muffled voice. Kill scattered Dongi tribesmen? So you guys are here to take advantage of us. Get back to the sect immediately. Do you think you can take advantage of the White Tiger sect? A young man with triangular eyes said coldly opposite Pang Shi. Nonsense. Who said we're here to take advantage of you? I won't take advantage of you. Pang Shi replied loudly. The young man with triangular eyes said coldly, how dare you talk back? Are you looking for a beating? There were other disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect at the side, but none of them interfered. They were all watching the show. Looking for a beating? Who do you think you can beat? Lu Ming walked over and said indifferently. Who? The young man with triangular eyes said coldly and turned to Lu Ming. However, when he saw Lu Ming's face, his face froze. Lu Ming. The young man with triangular eyes said in a daze. The other people's faces also changed slightly. However, there were also some people who were watching with great interest. This time, it wasn't just the bronze disciples who came, there were also many silver disciples who came. Senior brother Lu Ming, you're here too. Pang Shi was overjoyed when he saw Lu Ming. Big Stone. Lu Ming smiled and walked over. Then, he looked at the young man with triangular eyes and said, who did you say you wanted to beat? The young man with triangular eyes stammered for a long time, but he did not say a word. Lu Ming, junior brother Ming is doing it for their own good. They are disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard, right? Their cultivation is too low, not even Martial Master Level 4. If they go to the battlefield with such cultivation, it will be very dangerous. Junior brother Ming is doing it for their safety. At this moment, a young man behind the young man with triangular eyes walked up and said. Yes, that's right. After seeing this young man, the young man with triangular eyes was emboldened. Oh? Lu Ming responded with an oh, and then asked the triangular-eyed man, what is your cultivation level then? Me? Peak Martial Master Level 6. The young man with triangular eyes replied confidently. Peak Martial Master Level 6. It's very dangerous to go to the battlefield with such a low cultivation. Hurry up and go back. Lu Ming said indifferently and added, I'm doing it for your own good. The young man with triangular eyes' face turned red. Lu Ming, don't be unreasonable. Another young man said coldly. Who do you think you are? Lu Ming looked at him from the corner of his eyes. How dare you, Lu Ming? Don't think that you can be arrogant just because you are first on the bronze list. No matter how talented you are, you can only show off among the bronze disciples. Senior brother Du is a silver disciple, a martial master level 2 expert. He can easily suppress you. Now that we are talking to you nicely, don't fail to appreciate our kindness. The young man with triangular eyes pointed at Lu Ming and shouted loudly. Although Lu Ming's battle strength was very strong, he was only a martial master. Although his talent was heaven-defying and he could defeat or even kill a martial master level 1 expert. However, a martial master level 1 and a martial master level 2 were two different concepts. A martial master level 1 expert could not fight back against a martial master level 2 expert. This was the confidence of the young man with triangular eyes. He did not believe that Lu Ming could fight against a martial master level 2 expert. Martial master level 2. No wonder you are so arrogant. Lu Ming curled his lips and sneered as he waved his hand. Paw! The young man with triangular eyes was sent flying. I don't know how to appreciate your kindness, so what? Lu Ming's indifferent voice sounded, followed by the sound of the young man with triangular eyes landing heavily on the ground. Lu Ming, you are too arrogant. Do you really think that no one can stop you? Chapter 148. Of course, there is someone who can defeat me, but unfortunately, it can't be you. Lu Ming curled his lips and laughed. Senior brother Du, you must avenge me. At this moment, the triangular-eyed man struggled to get up and cried out. Unfortunately, one side of his face was swollen like a pig's head. Blood flowed from his mouth and several of his teeth were missing. Senior Du's expression became even more unsightly. Beside him, a few other silver disciples of the White Tiger Hall also walked over with an unfriendly expression. However, they were all first-layer martial masters. This Lu Ming is still as domineering as before. At the side, some disciples from the other halls were watching and someone commented. Geniuses are all like that. However, I feel that going too far is as bad as falling short. Even if you are a genius, you still have to be patient when you need to be patient. Because a genius who has not grown up is just an ordinary warrior. If you blindly act domineeringly and act according to your temperament, you will definitely suffer. You are right. This Lu Ming's battle strength is indeed very strong. Even a first-layer martial master would be at a disadvantage against him. However, it is impossible for him to be a match for a second-layer martial master. Watch carefully, he is up against Du Feng. He will soon be at a disadvantage. The people at the side were whispering. Lu Ming, do you know why many geniuses fall early? It is because they do not know how to restrain themselves. When facing an undefeatable opponent, they still act high and mighty. That is why they fall before they mature. Senior Du said coldly. Lu Ming smiled faintly, nonsense. When facing an undefeatable opponent, of course you have to restrain yourself. Do I need you to tell me that? However, when facing an opponent that can be suppressed with a flip of the palm, why should I restrain myself? The surrounding people were somewhat stunned. Lu Ming's meaning was clear. He could suppress Du Feng with a flip of the palm. Ha ha ha. Du Feng laughed out of extreme anger and said, let's see how you will suppress me with a flip of the palm. Dong! Du Feng took a step forward. It was as if a heavy hammer hammered the ground, producing a violent rumble. The aura on his body burst out. It was thick and powerful like a mountain. It was much stronger than a 9th-layer martial master. It could be said that a 2nd-level martial master could kill a 9th-level martial master with a flip of his hand. Du Feng's hand glowed and a green longsword condensed. It looked as if it was carved from green jade. Slash! Du Feng's sword slashed down towards Lu Ming. Sword Qi whistled, extremely shocking. Stronger than Jian Wuchen. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. As expected of a second-layer martial Grand Master. With Jian Wuchen's battle prowess, killing a first-layer martial Grand Master should be easy. However, he should not be a match for a second-layer martial Grand Master. However, Lu Ming was not at the 9th level martial master. Boom! Without even looking, Lu Ming punched out. His fist was wrapped in a layer of fiery red light, making Lu Ming's fist look like a fireball. Boom! It was unstoppable and unstoppable. Lu Ming's punch directly destroyed the sword aura that Du Feng slashed out, the combat sword that was condensed from his vital energy, and so on. Lu Ming's punch did not stop and continued to bombard. How can this be? In an instant, Du Feng's eyes widened and flashed with disbelief. Then, he roared and exploded with all his strength. His body retreated quickly. His hand glowed and a real spirit weapon appeared in front of him. Clang! Tang Feng's fist smashed onto the spirit weapon sword. A violent force erupted and Du Feng's body was blasted away like a cannonball. He crashed into the wall more than 30 meters away, smashing the wall and causing a burst of smoke and dust to fill the air. Hiss hiss hiss, gasps could be heard from the audience. The disciples of the 4 great academies stared so hard that their eyeballs almost popped out. One punch, just one punch and Du Feng was sent flying. He was not a match at all. He was as weak as a chicken. How is this possible? Could it be that Lu Ming has already broken through to the martial Grand Master realm? How can he be so fast? But that's the only possibility. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so strong. For geniuses like them, it's easy for them to step into the martial Grand Master realm. They had never heard of a 9th-layer martial master being able to send a 2nd-layer martial Grand Master flying with one punch. They guessed that Lu Ming should have stepped into the martial Grand Master realm. The triangular-eyed man was also dumbfounded. When he reacted, his whole body was trembling in fear. Du Feng struggled to get up from the shattered wall. His body was covered in dust and he was in a very sorry state. Lu Ming, just you wait. This time, there are 3rd-layer martial Grand Masters and even 4th-layer martial Grand Masters from the White Tiger Hall. Let's wait and see. Du Feng fiercely threw down a sentence and then left with his tail between his legs. It was too embarrassing. He couldn't stay for a second longer. The triangular-eyed man also hurriedly left with Du Feng. Lu Ming smiled and didn't care. Senior brother Lu Ming, you've become stronger again. Pang Shi walked over and said. Big Stone, how many days have you been here? Come, tell me about the situation. Lu Ming changed the topic. I've only been here for 2 days. The two of them came to a military camp. Pang Shi introduced the place to Lu Ming. According to Pang Shi, the Dongyi tribe attacked Dongke City 3 days ago. However, they retreated not long after and didn't continue to attack for the past 2 days. Big Stone, when the battle starts, he can't be impulsive. Lu Ming warned. During the battle, tens of thousands of soldiers would attack. Pang Shi's cultivation was indeed lower. Now, he was only a 2nd-layer martial master. I know. I just want to train. I won't die for nothing. Pang Shi scratched his head. Then, he walked around with Pang Shi. In the military camp, the army had already gone out to stand guard. Only the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were here. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect had a special status. Therefore, when there was no battle, they were more casual and could do whatever they wanted. The first day was peaceful. On the second day, it was still peaceful. The Dongyi tribe didn't make any moves. In the past 2 days, the disciples of the White Tiger sect didn't cause trouble for Lu Ming either. On the 3rd day of Lu Ming's arrival. Dong! 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 Suddenly, the war drums rumbled like thunder, resounding in the military camp. The Dongyi tribe is attacking. Let's go and kill them. My contribution points are here. There were more than 2,000 disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect in the past few days. Most of them were bronze-level disciples and a small number of silver-level disciples. There were about 100 of them. They had been bored out of their wits for the past few days. Now that they heard the war drums, they were all energized and rushed toward the city wall. Lu Ming, Pang Shi, and a few others also rushed toward the city wall. When they arrived at the city wall, the army of Dongke City was fully armed. Bows and crossbows were ready. Rumble. At this moment, in the distance, at the end of the coastal mountain range, there was a sudden rumble and the ground shook. Then, a dark cloud appeared at the end of the earth. No, those weren't dark clouds. They were beasts. There were countless beasts. There were tigers, wolves, leopards, and all kinds of beasts. There were even flying beasts. There were 1 or 2 human figures sitting on each of the demonic beasts. They were the Dongi tribe. There were at least tens of thousands of beasts. Roar! Roar!